This is a Techni Ice 24 cell ice pack. It's called a Techni Ice HDR. It's the top of the range in the Techni Ice sheets. There are 2-ply models which are sort of minimal reuse disposable. This particular one can be used literally thousands of times. It's made in Australia, which is all important, and it's got FDA approval, so it's one of the very few ice packs in the world that actually carries FDA approval, so it's food safe. It's primarily a commercial ice pack which gets used for the transport of perishables around the world and across the country and so on. But what I'm here to show you today is for consumers that aren't aware of how to hydrate this product. Here we go. You actually have to hydrate. You only have to do it once, but it's easy to do. So you pop it in water like so, you can see there, and you have to keep it under the surface of the water. And you scrunch it up like that, and you'll see there that there's actually air bubbles blowing out. See that? Now those air bubbles actually have to come out so the water can go in, and what will happen is the water enters through the one-way surface on the product and allows the polymer to expand. Now you can actually massage some of the cells up like that. This model here was, this has had many incarnations, this product, but this was the latest one which just came out a few weeks ago with, there's been improvements in polymer and perforation technology and all kinds of things over time, and this is the latest and the best performing one so far. So you can see what I'm doing there. I'm just massaging a few of these cells. Now, actually you can just leave it in the water and weigh it down with something and go away and have a coffee if you want, and you'll come back maybe 10 or 15 minutes later, it'll be fully expanded. If it'll stay on the bottom, which it'll almost do. Right, so you can just leave it in the bottom. You've already got the air bubbles out, and you'll see there it's starting to swell already. And it will actually swell up to quite a high cell, each one, and without me doing anything else. It's just floating on the bottom, and it's just soaking the water up. And it's a polymer that's a refrigerant polymer, and once that's soaked up, you only have to do that once, and then you can use it like a normal gel pack. The difference is, when you put a gel pack or ice in a freezer, it usually only goes down to around about -1. The ice doesn't go much lower because of the way it is. The reason these have sort of been embraced by a lot of food transport companies and so on is because they'll actually match any temperature the freezer will drop down to. In the case of your domestic freezer, you can put this in the freezer and it will drop down to -18, which is what your freezer is running at, compared to ice or gel packs, which will only be running at -1. So it's, it's literally 18 times colder than what you'll get a gel pack or ice to run at. So it's an amazing product, and yeah, so you can see there it's already swelled up. And that's pretty much ready to use. Now you can cut it to size to fit into lunch boxes and different types of things. You can actually wrap it around things like wine bottles, and it's got a lot of contact, so that the thermal contact on the surface of the product is excellent for putting around things. But it's that simple. This new model is actually a heck of a lot easier to hydrate than the previous ones. They've actually made it quite a bit simpler than they used to be, and you can see there it's really no problem. Now, before they used to get a bit slippery on the surface when they hadn't been hydrated properly, so you had to drop them in water usually a second time. So there you have it. It's all swollen up and ready to either heat or freeze. So you can put it in a freezer to charge it up and freeze it, or you can put it in a microwave oven or hot water, and that will absorb the heat and allow you to keep food hot for a long period inside an esky or a cooler bag, or people use it on their bodies and things like that as a heat and cold pack and stuff like that. Anyway, there it is. Now, one good thing to do before you throw it in the freezer is just give it a quick flick. That gets any excess water off. So you can see there it's almost dry, and just to finish things off, just run a towel over it. And the reason you're doing that is because it freezes much, much colder than the temperature of ice. So if you leave any water on the surface, that water on the surface will turn to ice, and then when you take the pack out and put it in your ice box, that will become water and you'll have a wet ice box. If you dry it first, your ice box will run dry and will run as cold as a freezer. So, it's an amazing product. Something else you can do with these Techni ice packs is you can actually cut them to size. So if you need one, let's say for a lunchbox or something like that, I've got to say too, you can cut them up once they're frozen or once they're hydrated, but it's much easier to do it if you do them when they're not, because then when you're not going to cut through the seam. So you can see there, you just cut down the centre like that, and there you have a quarter of one if you want a smaller one again. In places like Japan, the company sell these for the sushi bars and actually put a piece of sushi on each one. So there you go. So there's a small one. There's funny shapes, you can cut them. You know, you might want to cut them to go around your neck and have a long one or something like that. So you just cut along the seams like that. And a bit hard to see this light. There we go. And there you go. So there's lots of different shapes. Now, again, you just scrunch them up under the water like that. And the water will go in, the air bubbles will come out, and they'll just all swell up, the same as we've done with the big sheet. Sometimes there are occasions where you only want a small ice pack, so you can just cut into whatever size you want, basically. And there they go, I've done that. Now I'll lay them out. This new model here, which only came out in October 2013, it's a new version of it. It actually hydrates way quicker than the previous models, and it runs completely dry. So you only have to soak it once. It doesn't have any sort of residue on the surface or anything. It's a ripper actually, and they're very strong too. You can actually, unlike a gel pack, there's a lot of advantages of having it in cells. If you happen to ever pierce this, and it's pretty tough stuff to pierce because there's 2 layers of a nylon textile behind this plastic, and in fact the only reason the plastic's on there is to make it easy to wash and print on. So you can actually tear the plastic off this, and the barrier behind it, the textile barrier, would actually contain the polymer, and you can still use the ice pack. In fact, even if you stab one of these cells with a knife, where a gel pack you just lose it, and at the end of it you just cut the cell off and you've still got 23 cells left. So you know, it's an amazing, amazingly resilient pack. But you can see what I've done there. I've just almost got that swollen up already. And as I said, you can just leave it there too if you want to. If you just leave those there and go off and have a cup of coffee, these new ones will actually just be swollen up like that one when you get back. So there you go. If you've got a sports injury or something like that, apart from being able to keep things very cold in your ice boxes and cooler bags for a long time, they're actually very popular for things like swollen ankles and various things. In fact, these are the actual ice packs. The Techni ice packs were the actual ones that went to Beijing Olympics and also the Atlanta Olympics. So, you know, they're a very well respected, you know, ice pack for lots and lots of uses. But the main thing, of course, is transporting things in terms of food and medicine and things like that for big companies. But more and more consumers around the world are using them because you don't have to buy ice. They keep cold much longer than ice and keep your food at much lower temperatures. So there they are. That's ready now to heat or freeze, and that's Techni Ice HDR. That's the latest one. Reusable lots of times.